Look, somehow I escaped the fate of this life I lead. Divorced the street, she tried to kill me and my wife to be. Black widow, silk sheets and a satin pillow. This California king loved you like a sack of Indo. Empty Patron bottles and a pack of Mentos. Master Sweet refrigerator.
What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here with The Distance. Got a video for you guys. Another one tonight. This one's going to be for the bout between Tim Coleman and Kendall Holt. Bout takes place on March the 16th on ESPN. Friday Night Fights. Puts together two light welterweights. Both of them kind of fighting for relevance at this weight. Both of them had major losses. Both of their opponents are in bigger fights. Vernon Paris was Tim Coleman's last opponent. He's fighting in the IBF Eliminator against Zab Judah. And Kendall Holt had just lost against Danny Garcia, who's now fighting for a WBC light welterweight championship against Eric Morales, which is going to be a week after this bout. So both guys are kind of fighting for their relevance in this sport, or relevance in this weight. I think that both of them could probably just move up to 147 and find a decent fight there or rejuvenate their careers there. But this is where all the money is, at 140. This is where all the talent is. So this is a good fight. As far as I know, back in 2010, I think that Kendall Holt was actually supposed to fight Tim Coleman 2 years ago, and he ended up fighting Lucas Martin Matisse instead, I want to say. But I know that he was supposed to. I think this fight was supposed to happen 2 years ago, but it just didn't happen just because Holt ended up fighting Matisse instead, and Coleman went on and fought somebody else. And this was like after Coleman fought Mark Arnautis. I still don't understand how he was ever a champion. Anyway, that's a different story. But this is actually a very decent fight. You have two guys that are, I could tell you, is probably B-level at best. Kendall Holt is a very sharp counterpuncher, I think. And I think that Kendall Holt is more of a counterpuncher than anything else because he does wait for his opponent to commit. He does stand in that counterpunch stance. He doesn't do too well taking the lead, so he does like to use his opponent's aggression against him. And I'm going to start for Kendall Holt. Kendall Holt in this fight has to move a lot laterally because he doesn't want Tim Coleman to get set and throw his shots. Tim Coleman does have a tendency to come in and just throw that lead right hand just out of nowhere or out of just any spot in the ring and just doesn't set up his punches that well. So my thing with Tim Coleman is this: Kendall Holt has to know where he is at all times in this fight, and he has to know where he is at all times because Tim Coleman doesn't really know where he is at all times. He'll get to his shot to a part of the ring, he'll throw his shot, and he's back on the outside. He'll throw his punch back on the outside. Or he's marching forward and he's throwing punches, and that's pretty much what Tim Coleman does, is just throw punches. He's not too defensive minded. He'll shell up from time to time, but he's not defensive minded in defense leading to his offense. He's just defensive minded, so he doesn't get hit or something doesn't land on him. But after he shells up, he's back to throwing his punches again. So in this fight, Kendall Holt has to be on his P's and Q's. He has to be on the outside. He has to jab. He has to use his lateral movement. Look to counter Tim Coleman's right hand. Look to try to counter his jab with the straight overhand right, and not let Coleman get set in this fight. If he lets Coleman get set, Coleman's going to fight his own kind of fight. He's going to sit down on his punches, and that's something that Holt does not want. And being that he's a veteran, he knows that he doesn't want Coleman to sit down on his punches and get set and catch him with the big shot, because Holt does have a tendency from time to time to get caught. And the best route of not getting caught in this fight is just by using lateral movement. Look for the left hook, and he has enough power in that left hand to stretch just about anybody with that left hook. So in this fight, it's just about lateral movement, using the left hook, counter punching from the outside, and just staying on the outside, using your movement to create shots, create space using the jab. It's as simple as that. On the other hand, you have Tim Coleman. Tim Coleman has to try to get this fight into close proximity and make Kendall Holt fight his kind of fight. He has to outwork Kendall Holt and fight this one at a fast pace. And not from round 1 through 6, rounds 1 through 10 or 12, however long the fight is. He has to make Kendall Holt work. He has to make Kendall Holt fight his kind of fight. and the best way of doing that is just letting his hands go. You have to let your hands go against Kendall Holt, because if you let your hands go against Kendall Holt and the thing with Kendall Holt is Kendall Holt will not a lot of the time will not throw back, or he won't set up combinations in return. You could come in, you could throw like 3 or 4 punches. Holt comes back with a single shot. It's all about outworking Kendall Holt in this fight, going to his body, take his movement away, and try to take Kendall Holt into the later rounds. And I just think that Coleman could just win by outworking Holt. Look to outwork him. Look to counter his right hand with his own left hook, because Holt could tend to kind of lunge down with his chin exposed, and just look to outwork him. Have a high punch output in the early rounds, high punch output in the later rounds, steal rounds from him. I think he could very well win this fight, and also fight close with him. Possibly even take this to the center of the ring, because I don't think Kendall Holt will try to fight him at the center of the ring. And if he does, I'll be surprised. But I just think that Coleman just needs to come in and just throw punches and have a high punch output just to get by in this fight. So who am I going to go with this win? I'm going to go with Kendall Holt in this one. I think Kendall Holt's experience is far superior, and the opponents that he faces definitely is far superior to the opponents that Coleman has faced. And I think that Holt's skills are far superior to Coleman's skill. If Holt can move on the outside and not stand and try to trade punches with Coleman and trade hooks with him, I think he very well can win this fight. And this is a very winnable fight for both guys. Coleman has abilities to possibly hurt Holt with shot he doesn't see, but his record indicates that he doesn't, that he doesn't have the best knockout power. But if you get him in that right spot, he could possibly knock out anybody. Especially if he uses the uppercut, which stretched another opponent I've seen him fight. So if you get him in that right position, if you get Coleman in that right position, he'll stretch him as well. But I'm gonna go with Kendall Holt in this fight. Kendall Holt decision. So anyway, peeps, that was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.